Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day so far. I wanted to read Destiny's Gift with you today, and we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different when we're reading today. Now, yesterday you should have listened to this story on YouTube, so I hope you did that. And we're going to just reread the story today. Now, I always love to have students reread stories, and I also do it too because good readers do that so they can catch on to things that they might have missed the first time they read it. Okay, so you're going to be hearing me say that a lot this year. We're going to be rereading lots of stories because it will help us understand it better. So I want you to get your Journeys book right now, please, if you don't have that out yet. And we're going to go ahead and turn to page 82 and go over our vocabulary for the week. So number 1, afford. Kids collect toys for families who cannot afford to buy them. Afford means that you can buy something. So afford, let's see, let me try to think of another example. I am saving up money so that I can afford an iPad, for example. So afford means that you can buy something. If you cannot afford something, it means you do not have the money to buy it. Number 2, customers. Some store owners ask customers to donate $1 to charity. Customers are people who are buying things in a store. So if you go to the grocery store, such as Fairway or Walmart, you will see lots of different customers in there, which are the different people who are buying groceries. Number 3, contacted. This girl contacted neighbors by phone and asked for help with projects. Contacted means that you get in touch with somebody, or that you might call someone, you might text somebody, you could email, or even write a note. So if you're contacting someone, it means you are trying to talk to them. Number 4, raise. Many groups have bank sales to raise needed money. Okay, so this kind of raise is not like you're raising a flag in the air. This kind is that you are, you might be raising money for some kind of a charity. So to raise money means that you are trying to have people donate money so that you can put it towards a charity to help people out. Number 5, earn. These students are trying to earn enough to buy new library books. So earn means that you are able to, or earn means that you are, maybe you are getting money, or you are getting a certain grade based on if you studied or if you didn't study for a test. So if you earn an A+ on a test, that means that you studied really hard, so that is the grade that you get. Number 6, figure. Many schools figure out ways to reuse paper instead of throwing it away. Figure means that you are trying, let me think. Figure is a little bit of a hard one to explain. Figure means that you think of ways to do something. So if I told you to try to figure out a math problem, you're going to try to think about it and try to solve it. Number 7, block. Neighbors keep the city block pleasant by having a cleanup day each month. So a block is not like a kind of like a cube, although that is a block, but this kind of block means like on a street. Number 8, spreading. With floodwaters spreading, people had to pitch in and stack sandbags. Spreading just means that it's going all over. Okay, so if a floodwater is spreading, it means that it is going to other parts of an area as well. So that is our vocabulary words this week. Let's go ahead and turn the page. We're going to turn the page to 87, Destiny's Gift, by Natasha Anastasia Tarpley, illustrated by Adjoa J. Burrows. And today we're going to be using think marks. So if you started off the year in class with me, then you hopefully will remember what think marks are. If you did not start off the class with me, you might not know what think marks are. Basically, they are sticky notes that we're going to be putting in our textbook when we are when we're reading, just to think about reading. So I would like for you to go get some sticky notes. Now, if you do not have your sticky notes because maybe you misplaced them, which means maybe you lost them, or because I never gave you any because you were not ever in class in person, then that's okay. What you can do, if you have an adult available at your house with you, you can ask if they have any sticky notes. Now, don't bother them if they're busy or if they're trying to work. Now, so if you don't have any and you don't have an adult that can get you any of these, what you can do is grab a piece of paper, okay? So you can get like a piece of notebook paper. And what we're gonna do with these is I'm just gonna get go ahead and just grab 2 sticky notes. And I'm just going to tear them into 3 pieces each. So I'm going to do this, just like this, right down the middle. So now I actually have 6 think marks. They're just little strips like this. Okay, if you use paper, you can do that as well. You're just not going to have a sticky side to it, so you might need to use some tape if you have any, or I guess you just don't, just won't put it in your book. You'll just do it along with us, though. Okay, so this is what you should have. You should have 6 of them. I have my other ones down here. All right, now basically what think marks are is something to help us think about our reading, okay? So I'm going to go get my think marks poster. One moment. Okay, this is this is the poster that I have hanging up in class. Think marks, and it says to show what we are thinking when we read. So we have an LOL. LOL stands for laugh out loud, and it means that there's a funny part in this story. Question mark means that there might be a confusing part in the story that doesn't make sense to you. A heart is like a favorite part of your story. This star would be an important part. An exclamation point would be an exciting part. And a capital N would be something new that you learned. Okay? So keep this in mind as we are reading our story today. All right, so let's go ahead and turn to page 88. And I'm going to start reading this story, and I want you to start reading with me by just following along. And we're just going to be thinking about what kinds of think marks we could put in the book today. Don't do any yet, though. My favorite place in the world was Mrs. Wayne's bookstore, across the street from my house. Mrs. Wade knew everything there was to know about words, and I loved words. I went over to Mrs. Wade's every Tuesday and Saturday. As soon as I walked into the store, the wind chimes above the door tinkled a special hello. Hey there, Destiny, Mrs. Wade would call out and stop whatever she was doing to give me a big hug. She smelled like flowers and peppermint and had long silver dreadlocks that fell to her waist. What's the word? Mrs. Wade would ask. Let's go find out, I would say. We'd rush over to the big, thick dictionary Mrs. Wade kept on a pedestal in the store. I'd close my eyes, open the dictionary, and point. Wherever word my finger landed on was our word for the day. Mrs. Wade always helped me with words I didn't understand. We sounded out each word and picked it apart like a puzzle until I knew all there was to know about that word. I wrote down everything in my notebook, which I carried everywhere I went. When I wasn't writing words, I was reading them, gobbling them up from the pages of the books as if they were candy. Mrs. Wade always gave me new books to read. She even introduced me to real authors who came to read their books at her store. I liked to talk to them because they loved words just like I did. That's how I decided I wanted to become a writer when I grew up. On Saturdays, Mama and Daddy let me stay at Mrs. Wade's until closing. I helped Mrs. Wade around the store. I watered the plants and fluffed the big, comfy pillows where people could curl up and read on the floor. Then Mrs. Wade and I would put the new books on the shelves. Sometimes I'd open a book, stick my nose in between the pages, and take a big whiff. It smelled like ink and grass from the old clothes in my granny's closet. The crisp paper felt like autumn leaves between my fingers. Okay, so this makes me want to put a think mark. You might not want to put a think mark here, but I do. And I want to put a think mark where it said, the ink smelled like grass and the old clothes from my granny's closet, because I absolutely love the way that books smell. I know, it's so strange, isn't it? But I like the fact that I'm not alone, because Destiny likes the way that books smell too. I've always loved the way that books smell. So I'm going to put a heart next to that, because I love the way that books smell. I don't know. I just love it. So the sticky side is this side right here. Okay, so I'm going to write on this side, and I'm just going to put a heart because I love that part of the story. Just going to put a heart just like that. And I am just going to stick it next to that part in the story there. Just like that. Okay? And if you would like to do that as well, then go ahead and use one of your think marks to do that. Some of you might love the way that books smell too. Next page, on page 92. The part I liked best about these Saturdays was the end of the day after all of the customers had gone. Mrs. Wade would set up a tray with peppermint tea and butter cookies, the kind with a hole in the middle. We would drink our tea and pretend the butter cookies were diamond rings around our fingers. Then I would read to Mrs. Wade from my notebook. She'd listen to my stories and poems with her eyes closed. I'd imagine I was a famous author reading to a room full of people. Sometimes after I finished reading, Mrs. Wade would open her eyes and say, "Words are a very powerful gift." I wasn't sure what she meant, but I felt very important indeed. So I want you to take a moment and think, why is the bookstore so special to Destiny? Why do you think this bookstore is so special to her? I think it's so special to her because she loves Mrs. Wade, and Mrs. Wade is there all the time. Destiny loves words, right? She loves to read, and the bookstore is full of books. But I think she likes it most because of Mrs. Wade. Mrs. Wade makes her feel very special. Next page. Then one Saturday, everything was different when I got to Mrs. Wade's store. Instead of talking to her customers or unpacking new books as usual, Mrs. Wade was reading a letter and looked very sad. She put away the letter and smiled when she saw me, but I could tell she wasn't her usual cheerful self. Later, while we had our tea, Mrs. Wade told us what was wrong. She took my hand in hers, and we sat with our knees touching. Have you ever had a really tough assignment in school, but no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to figure it out? She asked. I nodded. Math problems were always like that for me. Oh no, I wonder what's going to happen. Well, I've been trying for a long time to figure out a way to keep the bookstore open, but I haven't had much luck, Mrs. Wade said, sighing. My landlord is raising my rent, and I cannot afford to pay the new amount. I may have to close the store. Mrs. Wade sighed again, and I thought I saw a small tear in the corner of her eye. My heart froze mid-beat. Close? No, I couldn't believe it. Why? Why do you have to close the store? I asked, my voice shaking. I need to earn more money in order to pay the higher rent, and there just aren't enough customers for that, Mrs. Wade said. Well, we can get more, I shouted. We'll see, Mrs. Wade smiled a sad smile. We'll see. Now, businesses, and for example, a business could be a grocery store, a clothing store, a bookstore, they have to pay rent on the building each month. Okay, so that means that they have to pay the person that owns the building for things like electricity and running water. Okay, now Mrs. Wade says that she cannot afford to pay the rent because that person, which is called the landlord, that person is raising the rent so it's a higher amount. And she cannot afford to pay it because she doesn't have enough customers that come in her store and pay her money. So she might have to close this bookstore. So I see on our ThinkMarks charts here, I don't see a sad face, but this page made me feel pretty sad because it reminded me of a time when a restaurant that I used to live by had to close because they could not afford rent anymore. So it kind of reminds me of that time. And it also makes me feel really sad for Destiny because Destiny loves this bookstore. So I'm going to make up my own think mark, which is okay to do sometimes. And I'm going to put a sad face. And you might want to do this with me because this probably makes you feel sad too. So just like that. And I'm just going to put that on this page to show that I felt sad when I read that page. Excuse me. Page 97. When I got home, I told Mama and Daddy about Mrs. Wade's store. I cried so hard, I didn't think I'd ever stop. Mama and Daddy wrapped me in their arms. I know how much the store means to you, Mama said, stroking my hair. Maybe there's something we can do to help, said Daddy. Mama and Daddy got on their telephone and called all of our neighbors. The next day, everybody on our block came to our house to talk about what we could do to save Mrs. Wade's store. The following Saturday, all of the kids in the neighborhood passed out flyers to get folks to come to Mrs. Wade's bookstore. The grown-ups contacted the local TV news stations and newspapers and called Mrs. Wade's landlord to ask him to lower her rent so her store could stay open. On Sunday, we made signs that said, "Save our store," and then marched around the neighborhood. It felt like being in a parade. So they're trying to help Mrs. Wade save her store. The next Saturday, we had a huge block party to raise money. There was singing and dancing and tables full of good food. I helped Mrs. Wade at her table, and we sold boxes and boxes of books. I had so much fun that I almost forgot to feel sad. Almost. So what I think the author is trying to say here is that it takes a lot of people to make a change. So Mrs. Wade is to the point where she can barely afford to pay rent anymore, and she's going to have to close her bookstore probably. But her community, which is all of the people that live in her town, didn't want that to happen to her because they love Mrs. Wade and they love her bookstore, and they want her to be able to stay open. Because also, if she loses her bookstore, then she doesn't have a job. Okay? So the author is trying to tell us that when a lot of people in a community come together to try to fight for a good cause and try to help somebody out, then sometimes that will work. Sometimes it doesn't work, though, but we're just going to have to see what happens in this story. Even with all of the signs and the flyers and the block party, I still wanted to do something special for Mrs. Wade. I wanted to give her a gift that would be just from me. I thought and thought, but couldn't come up with any ideas. "What are you thinking so hard about?" Mama asked. "I want to make a special gift for Mrs. Wade, but I can't think of anything," I said. "Well, why don't you close your eyes and take a deep breath," Mama said. "Then remember all of the good times you had with Mrs. Wade at the bookstore. I'm sure you'll come up with something." I closed my eyes and followed Mama's suggestion. Suddenly, I had an idea. I jumped up and got a new notebook and started to write. I wrote down everything I loved about Mrs. Wade's store, from the sound of the wind chimes hanging out on the door to the smell of the brand new books and Mrs. Wade's peppermint tea. I wrote all afternoon and all evening long. Mama and Daddy even let me write during dinner. The next morning, I finished writing and ran over to Mrs. Wade's store at its usual opening time. But when I got there, the store was closed. My heart pounded with fear as I peeked through the front window. Could Mrs. Wade have closed the store without telling me? Oh no. I was about to go home to tell Mama and Daddy when I heard Mrs. Wade's voice. Destiny, here I am, Mrs. Wade called from her stoop next door. Why isn't the store open? I asked. I just needed some time to think, Mrs. Wade said. Will you have to close the store forever? I whispered. I hope not, but I'm just not sure, Destiny, Mrs. Wade said sadly. It's hard to know if customers will keep coming back. I didn't know what to say. Then I remembered I had my notebook. I have a present for you, I said, and handed her the notebook to Mrs. Wade. Her eyes lit up with surprise when she opened it. Mrs. Wade's Bookstore by Destiny Crawford. Why don't you read it to me? Mrs. Wade asked, a big smile spreading across her face. I read every word as Mrs. Wade listened with her eyes closed. When I finished, Mrs. Wade gave me a big, long hug. Destiny, this is the best present anyone has ever given me, she said, beaming. Words are a powerful gift indeed. That time I knew exactly what she meant. Mrs. Wade and I don't know if this store will close, but until then, we are going to keep reading and writing and gobbling up all of the words we can. Oh, I just love that story. So the last page really made my heart feel all warm and fuzzy inside and really happy because even though the store might have to close, we never actually figure that out as readers. The author never actually tells us. So we kind of just have to just kind of think about that in our head and come up with our own ending. But I really love how Mrs. Wade and Destiny are super excited just to keep spending time together, even if the store might have to close. So I'm going to put a heart next to that part of the story as well. So I used 3 of my think marks today. If you did this with me, then you used 3 of yours. What I want you to do now is go back in the story. If you have not, I want you to try to use at least 3 think marks. So if you did not do the ones with me, then I would like for you to go back in the story to parts that maybe you really liked, parts that you might have found funny or exciting, or maybe a sad part, and I want you to put a think mark next to it. And your extra think marks that you have, you can just save those for next time when we do think marks again. Okay? So try to use at least 3 think marks in the story, and you can use the same ones I used, or you can use different ones if you want to. Okay? So I will see you all next time, and I hope you really enjoyed this story today. Bye.